There is a specific kind of person this is made for, not the skeptic. The skeptic has never committed deeply enough to encounter the particular disappointment that follows sincere effort. Not the beginner. The beginner still inhabits the early warmth of new ideas where everything feels possible precisely because nothing has yet been tested against reality. This is made for the practitioner, the person who has read the foundational texts not once but many times, who has constructed the visualizations with genuine concentration, who has written the affirmations with deliberate intention, and who still finds, on the honest days, the days when the internal performance drops and only the raw experience remains, that they are standing before a door that will not fully open. You recognize the teaching as true. You have felt its edge, its nearness. What you cannot account for is the distance that remains between that recognition and the actual, physical, undeniable change you were promised. Wallace Wattles identified this precise failure point in the 4th chapter of The Science of Getting Rich, and he named it without the softening that most modern interpreters feel compelled to add. The problem is not insufficient effort. A practitioner who has persisted through years of application cannot be accused of failing to try. The problem is not deficient belief. You would not still be practicing if some foundational conviction had not taken root. The problem is not the intensity of your desire, which by now has likely sharpened into something more resembling a quiet, persistent ache than an excited wish. The problem, as Wattles stated with the precision of a diagnostician examining a recurring condition, is frequency. The formless substance, the intelligent, responsive, thinking material from which all wealth and all physical form originates, does not evaluate the content of your thoughts the way a reader evaluates a text. It does not weigh your words. It does not count your repetitions. It responds to the inner state, the vibrational character, the fundamental quality of the consciousness from which those thoughts are being generated. Most practitioners are, in the truest sense of the phrase, thinking the right thoughts from entirely the wrong inner place. The thoughts are correct. The image may be clear. The words may be precise. But the place inside from which that thought is being launched carries a different signal entirely. One saturated with the weight of what has not yet arrived, with the low-grade anxiety of waiting, with the subtle but unmistakable vibration of lack. And the formless substance, which responds not to what you say but to what you are, receives that signal with perfect accuracy and responds accordingly. The thought content says one thing, the inner state says another. The formless responds to the inner state. This is not a flaw in the teaching. It is the teaching, the part that most interpreters pass over in their eagerness to reach the technique. Wattles understood that the outer practice is always a reflection of an inner condition, and that no technique, however faithfully applied, can override a dissonant frequency. The technique is the form. The frequency is the substance. And when the substance is wrong, the form produces nothing. What this exploration will accomplish is unusual in its scope. There will be no new technique added to what you are already practicing. No additional method, no further layer of practice, no refinement of a ritual you have already been performing. What will be done instead is something more fundamental, a descent beneath all techniques to the single inner frequency that determines whether every other practice either ignites or extinguishes. This is the work that most expositions of Wattles never reach, because it requires moving past the attractive surface of his method, the visualization, the affirmation, the gratitude list, and confronting the architecture that lies beneath. The method is not the teaching. The method is only the visible face of a much deeper principle. Once that frequency is understood, not as an abstraction, but as a precise, identifiable, reproducible inner state, the entire structure of Wattles' system reveals itself with a clarity that no amount of technique study can provide. You will be able to examine any given moment of your practice and know, with the cold accuracy of a calibrated instrument, whether you are in contact with the formless or merely performing the motions of contact. That distinction is the entire difference between a practice that works and a practice that consumes years without yield. And that distinction has a name, a mechanism, and a means of deliberate access. If you have arrived at this point in your study, if you are the practitioner who stands at the threshold sincere and perplexed, then commit to what follows with the full weight of your attention. Not because it promises something new, but because it will finally explain why what you already know has not yet fully moved. Subscribe so that when the next piece of this architecture is laid down, you will be present for it. This is not an accumulation of content. It is a single, continuous act of transmission. When Wallace Wattles opens The Science of Getting Rich with a declaration that there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and that this thinking stuff permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe, the modern reader faces an immediate interpretive decision. The most common choice, the choice that quietly undermines everything that follows, is to receive this statement as metaphor, as a poetic framing, as a 19th century way of expressing the general principle that consciousness is powerful, or that thoughts shape reality. In some loose and approximate sense, this interpretive choice feels reasonable, even generous. But it is categorically wrong, and the consequences of that error compound through every subsequent chapter. Wattles was not writing metaphor. He was writing ontology, a statement about the fundamental nature of what exists. In the intellectual and scientific climate of 1898 through 1910, the period in which his ideas were crystallizing, the concept of a universal, undifferentiated, creative substance was being approached simultaneously from multiple directions. Through the New Thought movement, through early vitalist philosophy, and through the emerging edges of physics that were beginning to dismantle the Newtonian certainty of a universe composed of fixed, discrete, inert matter. Wattles was working in that same intellectual territory, not as a poet, but as a systematist. He believed he had identified a law, not a tendency, not a probability, but a law, governing the relationship between human thought and physical manifestation. What he called the formless substance is the total, undivided field of creative potential from which all differentiated physical things are continuously being produced. Every object you can see, every circumstance you inhabit, every structure of matter and relationship, all of it is, in his cosmology, a local condensation of this universal substance, shaped into form by the action of thought upon it. This is not a spiritual proposition in the sentimental sense. It is a mechanical one. The formless is the raw material. Thought is the shaping force. Physical reality is the product. The sequence is invariable and does not require your belief in order to operate. The modern framework that most closely approaches what Wattles was describing is quantum field theory. Specifically, the understanding that what we perceive as solid, discrete matter is in fact a pattern of excitation within an underlying continuous quantum field. The field itself is not matter. It is the precondition for matter. What determines which patterns of excitation arise, which configurations of the field become actual observable things, is a question that physics has not fully resolved. And the margin of that unresolved question is precisely where Wattles planted his system. He was not ignorant of the difficulty. He was riding at the threshold of a scientific revolution that had not yet completed itself, articulating in the language available to him a principle that the language of physics would spend the next century struggling to formalize. The word thinking, in his phrase, thinking stuff, is the word that demands the greatest attention. Wattles is not saying that the substance is inert and that your thinking acts upon it from the outside, as a sculptor acts upon clay. He is saying that the substance itself thinks, that intelligence is not a property produced by certain configurations of matter, but the originating characteristic of the field from which matter emerges. This reversal of the conventional relationship between mind and matter is the foundation upon which everything else in his system rests. Remove it, and the entire structure collapses into vague affirmation practice. Retain it, and the system reveals a precision that most readers never encounter because they never take this first step with the required seriousness. If the substance thinks, if intelligence is its native character rather than an emergent property, then the relationship between human thought and the formless is not the relationship of a subject acting upon an object. It is the relationship of one order of intelligence communicating with another. Communication, unlike mechanical force, is governed not by the magnitude of the signal, but by the quality of attunement between the communicating parties. A message sent on the wrong frequency is not received, regardless of how loudly or how often it is transmitted. The frequency of the communicating mind must correspond to the frequency of the intelligence being addressed. This is not a metaphor. It is the operating principle of every communication system that has ever functioned. When Wattles says that the formless responds with the precision of a scientific instrument, he is stating something that most readers treat as enthusiasm, but that functions within his system as a warning. A scientific instrument is precise in both directions. It registers what is actually present, not what you wish were present. It does not interpolate, does not average, does not give partial credit for effort or sincerity. If the instrument reads a dissonant frequency, it records a dissonant frequency. The formless, in this sense, is ruthlessly accurate. It receives the exact signal you are broadcasting, not the signal you believe yourself to be broadcasting, and it responds to that exact signal with perfect fidelity. This is the point at which Wattles' system separates itself decisively from the popular conception of the law of attraction. The popular conception implies a process of mental output, of sending thoughts outward like projectiles, and then waiting for reality to rearrange itself in response. Wattles' conception is more subtle and more demanding. The formless is not a target to be struck by thought projectiles. It is an intelligence to be contacted through the quality of your inner state. The distinction is not semantic. It is the difference between a practice that performs thinking about and a practice that achieves thinking with, a participatory engagement with an intelligent substance conditioned entirely upon the frequency from which that engagement is attempted. Consider what this means for the practitioner who has applied the technique faithfully. The visualization has been performed. The image was clear, the duration was sufficient, the intention was genuine. But if the state from which that visualization was conducted was saturated with the quiet anxiety of wanting, with the subtle vibration of something not yet here, then the impression delivered to the formless was not the image of the desired result. It was the image of the desired result filtered through the felt reality of its absence. These are not the same impression. The formless received the second one, not the first, and it responded accordingly. This also explains why gratitude, which Wattles elevates to a structural principle rather than a peripheral practice, has the precise function it does. Genuine gratitude, not performed, not recited, but actually felt, is the inner state that most consistently eliminates the vibration of lack. When you are genuinely grateful for something, you are, by the logic of your own felt experience, affirming that it exists. You cannot be grateful for an absence. The state of real gratitude is therefore the state in which the mind is, if only momentarily, free from the signal of wanting what is not here. And in that freedom, the frequency aligns. What Wattles is describing, when followed to its logical conclusion, is a system in which the quality of your inner life is not a byproduct of your external circumstances, but the primary instrument of their creation. This is the inversion that his system demands. And it is the inversion that most people understand intellectually, but do not yet inhabit as an operational reality. To inhabit it, the abstract must become precise. The principle must become a recognizable, reproducible state, something you can enter, something you can lose, and something you can return to with deliberate intent. The formless substance is not distant. It is, by Wattles' own description, the very material from which this moment is being assembled. Your relationship to it is not a future aspiration. It is a present fact, a fact that has a specific quality right now in this instant, regardless of whether you are attending to it. The question is never whether you are in contact with the formless. The question is always the character of that contact, the frequency it carries, the signal it transmits, the impression it delivers. And that character is entirely within the domain of your volition. The magnitude of what this implies should not be allowed to pass unremarked. If the formless is continuously responsive, if the channel is always open, and if the only variable is the frequency of the mind that contacts it, then there is no neutral moment. Every moment of your inner life is an act of creation, either a creation of what you intend or a creation of what you merely are. The practitioner who grasps this not as a concept, but as an operating reality, faces a different order of demand than the practitioner who is still in some private corner of their understanding, treating the formless as a device to be activated on occasion. The distance you have felt, that persistent, frustrating sense of standing just outside the threshold, is not evidence that the law is inconsistent or that the teaching has exceptions. or that you are somehow excluded from what others have accessed. It is evidence of a frequency gap, a measurable, correctable dissonance between the state you are in when you practice and the state the formless requires in order to receive a clean impression. That gap can be closed. It has been closed by everyone who has moved from sincere effort to actual result within this system. And in every case, without exception, the closing of that gap was not accomplished by adding more technique. It was accomplished by attending to the frequency. There is a word that appears throughout the science of getting rich with a regularity that should, by any careful reading, signal its central importance. Yet it is the word most consistently glossed over in both popular and scholarly expositions of Wattles' work. That word is harmony. Wattles does not use it loosely. He does not deploy it as a synonym for peace or for pleasant feeling. He uses it as a technical term, with the same precision that a physicist uses the word resonance to describe a specific and measurable relationship between oscillating systems. To understand what Wattles means by harmony is to understand the entire mechanism of his system in a single idea. In classical physics, resonance occurs when two systems share the same natural frequency. When a vibrating tuning fork is brought near another tuning fork of identical pitch, the second fork begins to vibrate without being physically struck. The energy transfers not through contact, but through frequency correspondence. The principle does not require the two systems to be identical in size, in material, or in origin. It requires only that they share the same fundamental rate of oscillation. When they do, the communication between them is not merely possible, it is inevitable. Wattles understood the human mind and the formless substance to stand in precisely this relationship, with harmony as the condition of their resonance and creative communication as its consequence. When the mind is in harmony with the formless, thought impresses upon it. This is Wattles' core claim, and it carries a weight that the casual reader routinely fails to feel. The word impresses is doing specific work here. It means that the thought leaves a mark, that it inscribes itself into the substance the way a seal pressed into wax leaves its form behind when the seal is lifted. The formless receives the impression of the thought and begins, by its own creative intelligence, to organize the physical conditions necessary to manifest what was imaged. This is not a gradual influence or a statistical tendency. It is, in Wattles' formulation, a deterministic process, one whose outcome is not in question once the impression has been cleanly received. The essential logic here is that the formless does not respond to the semantic content of a thought, to what the thought is about, to the specific image it contains, independently of the frequency from which that thought was generated. The content and the frequency arrive together as a single communication, and the formless receives them together. If the content says abundance, but the frequency says lack, the impression that is received is not a clean signal for abundance. It is a distorted signal. The content partially canceled by the frequency, the image partially overlaid with the vibrational character of the state from which it was transmitted. The formless receives this distorted impression and responds to it with the same accuracy with which it would respond to a clean one. The result is a distorted manifestation, partial, delayed, or absent. This is the mechanism that explains every instance of the technique worked for a while, then stopped. The practitioner achieved a state of harmony at the beginning, often through the genuine enthusiasm of a new commitment, which carries its own form of clear, forward-facing frequency, and during that period of harmony, impressions were made and results began to move. Then, as the novelty faded and the disciplined maintenance of the frequency became the actual work, the inner state shifted. The practice continued, but the frequency underneath it changed. The impressions that followed were distorted. The results slowed or reversed. And the practitioner, examining the outer evidence, concluded that the technique had stopped working, when in fact, the only thing that had stopped was the harmony. The dissonant states that break harmony are not random. Wattles catalogs them with the precision of a clinician, and they fall into recognizable patterns. Hurry is the first and most pervasive. When you feel urgency about the arrival of a result, when you are pressing, forcing, checking, you are, by definition, operating from a state that registers the result as absent. The formless receives this state as its primary signal. Worry is the second. It is not merely an unpleasant emotion, but an active act of creation, a sustained impressioning of the formless with the image of the unwanted outcome, carried by the full emotional weight of genuine belief. The person who worries is not failing to impress the formless. They are impressing it with extraordinary consistency and emotional intensity, but with the image of what they fear. Resentment toward those who already possess wealth or abundance is the third and perhaps the most architecturally damaging dissonant state. Wattles is unambiguous on this point. Resentment places the mind in a competitive rather than creative relationship with existence, and the competitive mind, by its very structure, perceives abundance as a finite resource being hoarded by others. From this perception, the creative channel cannot function. The competitive mind cannot be in harmony with the formless, because the formless is the very source of inexhaustible supply, and a mind that believes in scarcity cannot resonate with a substance that knows only abundance. The frequency mismatch is total. The channel is closed. What must be understood about these dissonant states is that they are not moral failures. Wattles does not condemn the person who worries or hurries or resents. He diagnoses them. The distinction is critical. A moral condemnation invites guilt, and guilt is itself a dissonant frequency that compounds the problem. A diagnosis invites correction, a precise, dispassionate recognition that the instrument is out of calibration, followed by the equally precise act of recalibration. The practitioner, who understands dissonance as a technical condition rather than a personal failing, is in a position to address it with the efficiency that the system demands. The three conditions of harmony, gratitude, faith, and the living image, are not practices you perform to achieve harmony at some future point. They are, in Wattles' system, the constituent elements of the harmonic state itself. When all three are genuinely simultaneously present, harmony is not being pursued. It is being inhabited. The mind that is truly grateful, truly certain, and truly holding a clear mental image of its desired reality is not approaching the formless. It is already in contact with it. The impression is already being made. The creative process is already underway. The question of whether it will work has been rendered obsolete. Consider the structural elegance of this. Gratitude eliminates the felt sense of absence. You cannot be genuinely grateful and simultaneously feel lack. Faith, in Wattles' specific definition, as the posture of one who knows something is already in motion in the invisible, eliminates the felt sense of uncertainty. The living image provides the specific form that the formless is being invited to instantiate. Each of the three conditions addresses and neutralizes a specific category of dissonance: lack, doubt, and formlessness. Together, they constitute a state of mind that has removed every obstacle to clean impression and replaced them with the precise conditions the formless requires. The practical implication of this architecture is that the question a practitioner should be asking is not, "Am I doing this correctly?" It is, "What is the quality of my inner state at this moment?" The first question directs attention toward the technique. The second directs it toward the frequency, which is the only variable that matters. A practitioner who has memorized every chapter of the science of getting rich and applies every technique with flawless external precision, but does so from a state of quiet desperation, is producing nothing of value in the invisible. A practitioner who simply inhabits the three conditions of harmony, even imperfectly, even without knowing Wattles' name, is impressing the formless with every moment of that inhabited state. There is a passage in the science of getting rich that most readers encounter and then move past without registering its full weight. Wattles states that the grateful mind continually expects good things, and that expectation becomes faith. This is not a motivational observation. It is a description of a self-reinforcing internal mechanism. Genuine gratitude, sustained in the presence of a clear image, generates expectation. And that expectation, as it deepens, becomes the certainty that Wattles defines as faith. The three conditions are not three separate practices to be assembled in sequence. They are phases of a single deepening state that, once entered and sustained, becomes self-generating. The implication for the practitioner is that the entry point into harmony is always gratitude, precisely because gratitude requires the least from you at the moments when the frequency is lowest. You do not have to believe anything in order to be grateful for what already exists. You do not have to maintain a clear image of anything in order to recognize what has already manifested in your life. Gratitude asks only for honest acknowledgement of present reality, of what already is, of what has already been given. And from that honest acknowledgement, if it is real and not merely recited, the frequency begins to shift. The signal clears. The channel, which was narrowed by dissonance, begins to open. This is the sequence Wattles describes, and it is both simpler and more demanding than any technique he is popularly associated with. The frequency is the key. Every other element of Wattles' system, the visualization, the affirmation, the daily practice, the clear mental picture, the certainty of result, is downstream of it. These elements do not create the frequency, they express it. When the frequency is right, they are expressions of a living inner reality. When the frequency is wrong, they are performances with no corresponding inner substance. The formless receives the substance, not the performance. It cannot be deceived, not because it judges, but because it is precise. It receives exactly what is present, and it responds to exactly that. The practitioner who understands this has arrived at the beginning of the real work. In a book whose stated purpose is the science of acquiring wealth, a book structured around practical principles and concrete application. Wallace Wattles devotes one complete chapter to a single subject that, on its surface, has nothing to do with wealth acquisition at all. Chapter 7 of The Science of Getting Rich is given entirely to gratitude, not to technique, not to method, not to the mechanics of accumulation or the strategies of action. To gratitude alone. That choice, the decision to interrupt the procedural logic of the book with an undivided examination of this single inner condition, is itself a statement about the architecture of the system. Wattles knew exactly what he was doing. The placement of that chapter and the weight he gives it signals that gratitude is not peripheral to his science. It is structural to it. The first error most readers make when they encounter that chapter is categorizing gratitude as a virtue, a moral quality, a pleasant habit, a spiritual practice appropriate to the religious or the temperamentally grateful. In this categorization, it becomes optional. It becomes something that the good practitioner includes and the impatient practitioner skips, without recognizing that the skip is a fundamental technical error. Wattles does not place gratitude in the chapter on character or in a section about spiritual preparation. He places it in the middle of the operative science, directly adjacent to his discussion of how the formless receives and responds to thought. The position is instructive. Gratitude belongs to the mechanism, not to the ethics. What Wattles is describing when he insists on gratitude is a specific, identifiable, reproducible inner state that has a precise effect on the frequency of the mind. The effect is this: genuine gratitude eliminates the felt sense of lack, not by denying lack's apparent evidence in the physical world, and not by persuading yourself that you are satisfied when you are not, but by shifting the dominant signal of your inner state from the frequency of want to the frequency of sufficiency. This shift is not cosmetic. It is, in the terms of this system, the most functionally significant act a practitioner can perform, because the formless is calibrated to respond to the signal of sufficiency in the same way that a receiving instrument is calibrated to receive a specific frequency. When you are genuinely in a state of gratitude, you are at the level of your lived inner experience, inhabiting the reality of having, and the formless receives the signal of having. There is a distinction that must be held with precision here, because the failure to hold it is responsible for the ineffectiveness of gratitude as practiced by the majority of practitioners. The distinction is between performed gratitude and felt gratitude. Performed gratitude is the recitation of a list, the act of naming things you are grateful for as a ritual, as a daily exercise, as a method. There is nothing wrong with this practice as a discipline, but it carries a specific risk. It can be executed in a state of profound inner disconnection from what it purports to express. A person can write 10 items on a gratitude list while feeling, in the actual substance of their inner experience, nothing remotely resembling gratitude. They are performing the form without inhabiting the substance. And the formless, which receives the substance, receives the disconnection. Felt gratitude is something altogether different. It is the moment, however brief, when the recognition of something already present in your life lands in your body with actual weight. When you move from the concept of having something to the actual embodied felt sense of having it. This moment is not difficult to engineer, but it requires something that most practitioners find surprisingly challenging. It requires you to stop, completely and without agenda, and allow the reality of what already is to penetrate the busy surface of your consciousness. Not what might be, not what should be, what is. The wealth that already exists in your life in any form, the fact of your own cognition, of the air in your lungs, of the capacity for thought that allows this moment of engagement. These are not consolations. They are the legitimate material of genuine gratitude. And when that gratitude is felt, the signal shifts. Wattles makes an observation that initially seems to be purely theological, but is, on examination, an assertion about frequency mechanics. He states that the grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best, and that this fixation on the best tends to become the best. This is not an optimism prescription, it is a description of the directional logic of impression. The formless receives the impression of what the mind most consistently, most vividly, most emotionally inhabits. A mind in genuine gratitude inhabits the image of sufficiency, of present good, of existing abundance. It impresses that image on the formless with the full emotional weight of a state that actually believes in its own content. The result, over time, is that the formless organizes physical circumstances around that impression, drawing more of what corresponds to the signal of sufficiency into the practitioner's experience. This is the mechanism by which Wattles claims that gratitude produces more to be grateful for, not as a spiritual reward for virtuous behavior, but as the logical consequence of a consistent, emotionally authentic signal of having being impressed upon an intelligent, responsive substance. The formless does not make moral judgments. It responds to frequency. A frequency of having, sustained and genuine, produces conditions of having. The production is not instantaneous. It moves through the density of physical circumstances at the pace that physical reorganization allows. But it is, in his system, invariable. The law does not grant exceptions based on the complexity of your circumstances. The practice of gratitude as a tuning mechanism therefore requires a specific discipline that is entirely unlike the discipline of technique application. It does not ask you to do something more. It asks you to be more fully present to what already is. This is, for the action-oriented practitioner, a genuinely counterintuitive demand. The tendency under pressure is to do, to add another method, another visualization, another affirmation, another hour of practice. Wattles' gratitude asks for the opposite, a cessation of the forward-reaching urgency and a deepening of attention to present reality. The tuning does not happen in the future. It happens in the fullness of the present moment, when the practitioner stops straining toward what is not yet here and receives, with genuine acknowledgement, what is already here. There is a further consequence of sustained gratitude that Wattles addresses less explicitly, but that is implicit in the full architecture of his system. The grateful mind cannot simultaneously maintain a competitive orientation toward existence. The competitive mind, as Wattles defines it, operates from the premise that supply is limited and that what another possesses is, in some sense, at the practitioner's expense. This premise is the source of resentment, of envy, of the corrosive habit of measuring one's own life against the apparent prosperity of others. Genuine gratitude dissolves this orientation from the inside out. A person who is authentically experiencing gratitude for the substance of their own existence is not, in that moment, in competition with anyone. The competitive signal, which closes the creative channel, cannot be simultaneously present with authentic felt gratitude. They are, at the level of frequency, incompatible states. Wattles is careful to distinguish between the state he is recommending and what might be mistaken for passive contentment or resigned acceptance of present circumstances. The gratitude he describes is not the gratitude of one who has given up on expansion. It is the gratitude of one who recognizes that the substance of what they desire is already present in the formless, already impressed, already in the process of taking physical form, and who relates to present reality not as an inadequacy to be escaped, but as the most recent visible evidence of a creative process already in motion. This is a subtle but important distinction. Gratitude here is the posture of one who understands the lag between impression and manifestation, and who is grateful both for what is already visible and for what is already in the invisible process of becoming visible. The practical architecture of gratitude as a tuning mechanism can be stated with precision. Enter each day at least one moment of genuine, felt acknowledgement of something that already is, not what you want, what is. Hold that felt recognition long enough for it to penetrate beneath the surface of your cognitive activity, into the actual substance of your inner state. From within that state, allow your image of the desired result to arise, and observe that when it arises from within a state of genuine sufficiency, it arrives differently than when it arises from a state of want. The image is the same, but the frequency it carries into the formless is entirely different. One is the image of a person who is moving toward what they desire. The other is the image of a person who is receiving what they already know is coming. Only the second is in harmony, only the second impresses. This understanding of gratitude as the primary tuning mechanism, the first and most foundational condition of harmony, reframes the entire question of how to begin a practice. The practitioner who asks, "What should I visualize, and for how long?" is beginning at the wrong layer. The practitioner who asks, "Am I right now in a state of genuine felt sufficiency?" is beginning exactly where Wattles intended. The visualization is a tool. The sufficiency is the substance, and without the substance, the tool produces nothing. Gratitude, understood in this way, is not the soft opening ritual of a practice. It is the condition of possibility for everything that follows. It is the act that tunes the instrument. And without it, no matter how sophisticated the subsequent technique, the instrument remains out of tune, and the formless continues to receive a distorted signal. The door remains closed, not because the law has failed, but because the key has not been properly engaged. The tradition from which Wattles drew was clear about this priority, even when it expressed it in different vocabularies. Across the contemplative and philosophical literature of the centuries preceding his work, from the Stoic emphasis on the nature of the present good, to the mystical traditions that located the divine in the immediate reality of what is, to the Emersonian insistence on the sufficiency of present consciousness, the same functional truth recurs. The mind that is at peace with what is the mind most capable of creating what comes next. Wattles did not invent this. He systematized it, grounded it in the specific mechanism of the formless substance, and made it operational for the practitioner concerned not with spiritual elevation, but with the concrete transformation of material circumstances. In that systematization, gratitude lost its ornamental quality and became, for the first time in this particular tradition, a load-bearing structure. If gratitude is the tuning mechanism, the condition that brings the mind into the basic frequency relationship with the formless that makes impression possible, then faith and the living image are the conditions that complete the circuit. Wattles does not present these three elements as a hierarchy in which gratitude is primary and the other two are supplementary. He presents them as a simultaneous configuration, a set of conditions that must be present together in order for the harmonic state to be fully operative. Remove any one of them, and the state is incomplete. The channel is narrowed, the impression is partial. The process continues, but without the full creative force that the complete configuration provides. Faith, as Wattles defines it, is the element most frequently misunderstood, and its misunderstanding produces a specific, identifiable failure pattern that many practitioners experience without being able to name. The popular conception of faith, both in religious and secular usage, treats it as a form of belief held in the absence of evidence, a conviction maintained despite the current state of visible reality. This definition implies a kind of effort, a deliberate suppression of doubt, a willed insistence on a belief that the outer world is not yet confirming. This conception of faith is exhausting. It is brittle, and it is not what Wattles means. Wattles's faith is not the suppression of doubt. It is the natural posture of a mind that has genuinely grasped the nature of the formless substance and the law of its operation. When you understand what not as a belief you are maintaining, but as a fact you have genuinely comprehended, that the formless is intelligent, responsive, and already in the process of organizing physical circumstances around every clean impression it receives, then the attitude that follows is not one of desperate hoping. It is one of quiet, settled knowing. Not the knowing of someone who is forcing themselves to be certain, but the knowing of someone who understands a mechanism and therefore does not require reassurance about whether it will function. You do not have faith that the sun will rise in the way that implies effort. You simply know it. Wattles' faith has that quality. The distinction is not trivial. A mind that is effortfully maintaining belief is, by the very structure of that effort, registering the possibility that the belief might be wrong. The effort reveals the doubt. The formless receives both the surface belief and the underlying doubt, and the net signal is dissonant. A mind that has settled into the genuine knowledge that the law operates not as an optimistic conviction, but as a comprehended fact, produces no such countersignal. There is nothing to suppress because there is nothing to doubt. The doubt has been answered not by force of will, but by understanding. This is the quality of inner state that Wattles calls faith, and it is produced not by spiritual discipline in the traditional sense, but by intellectual grasp, followed by the lived practice of allowing that grasp to deepen. The living image, the third condition, is the element that most practitioners believe they have mastered, and it is the element that most practitioners are executing in a way that subtly undermines the entire configuration. A visualization practice that consists of forming a mental image of a desired outcome and then concentrating upon it is not, in itself, a living image in Wattles' sense. The word living is the operative word, and it carries a specific meaning within his system. A living image is not a picture. It is an inhabited reality, a mental form that the practitioner does not observe from the outside, but inhabits from the inside, in the same way that you inhabit your own name, not by looking at it, but by being it. The test of whether an image is genuinely living is the felt quality of its presence in your consciousness. A living image is accompanied by the same quiet certainty with which you know facts about your own identity, your own name, your own history, your own basic capacities. You do not hold your name as an uncertain thought that might be wrong. You hold it as a settled, unquestioned present fact. The living image of the desired result must be held in the same register, not as something that might come to be, not as something you are hoping for, but as something that already exists in the formless, already impressed, already in the creative process, and that you are relating to as a settled, present fact rather than as a future aspiration. This is where the three conditions reveal their structural interdependence. A living image, held in the way Wattles describes, is impossible to sustain in the absence of faith, because the quality of settled knowing that makes the image living is precisely the quality that faith provides. And faith of that settled, knowledge-based quality is impossible to sustain in the absence of gratitude, because the gratitude that eliminates felt lack is the condition that removes the most powerful countersignal to the living image, which is the persistent background radiation of wanting what is not yet here. Each condition enables the others. Together, they constitute a state that is qualitatively different from any of them individually, in the same way that a chord is qualitatively different from any single note, even when those notes are themselves harmonious. The simultaneity requirement is the most demanding aspect of this configuration for most practitioners. It is relatively straightforward to move through each of the three conditions sequentially. To begin with a gratitude practice, then shift to an act of faith, then construct a visualization. Many practices are structured this way, and this sequential approach is not without value. But sequential execution is not the same as simultaneous presence. The harmonic state Wattles describes is a single, unified inner reality, in which all three conditions are present at once, not being performed one after another, but being inhabited together as aspects of a single coherent state. Achieving this simultaneity is a matter of depth, not technique. It comes from practicing each condition long enough that it becomes a stable feature of the inner landscape rather than a transient act of will. What happens when this simultaneous configuration is achieved, even briefly, even imperfectly, is the moment Wattles describes as the channel being open. The impression is clean. The frequency is aligned. The formless receives the image with the full weight of the state that carries it, a state of genuine sufficiency, genuine knowing, and genuine clarity about the desired form. The creative process is not initiated in that moment. It is already underway. The open channel simply allows the practitioner to become aware of and participate in a process that the formless, by its nature, is always ready to conduct. The practitioner's role is not to make the formless work. It is to stop preventing it from working by inhabiting states that distort the signal. The three conditions, gratitude, faith, and living image, are therefore not three things you do. They are three aspects of a single way of being that Wattles considers the natural state of the creative mind, a mind that has genuinely understood the nature of the formless and entered into its correct relationship with it. From that state, action flows naturally, not from urgency or from the pressure of lack, but from the clear, unhurried intelligence of one who knows where they are going and is moving there without the friction of doubt. The actions taken from this state carry a different quality than actions taken from urgency or fear. They are efficient. They are directed. They are, in Wattles' language, efficient actions, the kind that consistently produce results because they are expressions of harmonic contact, rather than compensatory attempts to force a result that the inner state has not yet opened the channel for. The architecture of Wattles' system is not merely a description of how to achieve harmony with the formless substance. It is equally, and perhaps more practically, a precise mapping of the internal conditions that destroy it. Wattles names these conditions with a specificity that is rare in the literature of this tradition, and the naming is not incidental. It reflects his understanding that the practitioner who can recognize dissonance with precision is better equipped to correct it than the practitioner who only knows what harmony feels like. The map of failure is as important as the map of success. Together, they constitute a complete navigational instrument. The first enemy of frequency that Wattles identifies is hurry, and the word must be understood in its full psychological depth rather than as a simple reference to rushing. Hurry, in his system, is not merely the experience of moving too fast. It is the inner state of one who believes that time is running out, that the result is not coming fast enough, that the gap between present reality and desired reality is closing too slowly. Hurry is the felt experience of that gap, the continuous low-level awareness of distance, of not yet there, of a future condition that is not sufficiently present in the current moment. A practitioner in a state of hurry is not simply impatient. They are continuously impressing the formless with the felt reality of distance, with the signal of the desired result being somewhere else, not here, not yet. The formless receives this impression of distance and responds to it with the same precision with which it responds to any other signal. The insidious quality of hurry is that it so often accompanies what appears to be sincere, committed practice. The practitioner who meditates every morning visualizes with concentration and reviews their image with discipline, but does all of this with an undertone of urgency, a sense of pressing forward, of needing the result to arrive, is not practicing from harmony. They are practicing from a well-organized state of dissonance. The discipline is real, the intention is genuine, but the inner quality of the practice is saturated with the vibration of want. And that vibration is being impressed on the formless with every session. The result is a practice that consumes energy, produces no shortage of effort, and yields results that are consistently slower and smaller than the investment of discipline seems to warrant. Worry operates through a mechanism that is, if anything, more destructive than hurry, because worry is not merely a passive experience of anxiety. It is an active creative act. When you worry, you are constructing in deliberate and often very detailed mental form the outcome you do not want. You are imaging it, giving it shape, duration, emotional weight, plausibility. You are rehearsing it. And because the formless responds to the mental image held with emotional conviction, worry is the most efficient method available for impressing the unwanted upon the responsive substance. Most practitioners understand this intellectually, but do not experience it as a functional reality, because the cultural understanding of worry treats it as an emotion that happens to you, rather than an act that you perform. Wattles' framing corrects this. Worry is a form of creation, and it is among the most energetically committed forms of creation that most people ever engage in. The practitioner who has read Wattles and understands this and still worries is not failing through ignorance. They are experiencing the gap between intellectual comprehension and inner command. The gap between knowing that a state is counterproductive and having the dominion over that state to refuse it or dissolve it when it arises. This gap is precisely what the practice of frequency maintenance is designed to close. Not through suppression of the worry, which is itself a form of resistance that generates its own dissonant signal, but through the deliberate re-entry into the harmonic state, which displaces the worry not by force, but by replacement. The frequency of genuine gratitude cannot coexist with the frequency of genuine worry. They do not fight. One simply has no room in the space the other occupies. Resentment toward those who already possess what you desire is the third major dissonant state, and it is the one that Wattles treats with the greatest seriousness precisely because it is the most invisible to the practitioner who harbors it. Hurry can be felt. Worry is unmistakable. But resentment often presents itself under a more acceptable disguise as legitimate observation of inequality, as principled critique of those who possess more, as the entirely reasonable recognition that the distribution of resources in the world is unjust. None of these observations is necessarily false, but when they are accompanied by the inner vibration of resentment, by the felt sense that another's abundance is a diminishment of your own, or by the corrosive habit of measuring your life against the visible prosperity of others, they generate a frequency that is fundamentally incompatible with creative contact with the formless. The reason resentment is so architecturally damaging in Wattles' system is that it activates what he calls the competitive mind, the orientation that perceives all wealth as finite, all abundance as already claimed, all prosperity as a matter of taking from a limited pool rather than drawing from an unlimited source. The competitive mind and the formless substance operate on incommensurable frequencies. The formless is, by its nature, the infinite supply, the inexhaustible creative material from which all form arises and from which no amount of creation diminishes the available stock. A mind that believes, even subconsciously, in scarcity cannot resonate with a substance that embodies infinite abundance. The frequency mismatch is total and the channel is fully closed. The practitioner can perform every technique in Wattles' repertoire from within this orientation and produce nothing because the foundational signal is incompatible with the foundational nature of the substance being addressed. The clinical precision with which Wattles names these dissonant states, hurry, worry, and resentment is itself a practical gift to the serious practitioner. These three states serve as a diagnostic framework that can be applied in real time. At any given moment of practice, the practitioner can ask a single question: which of these, if any, is present in my inner state right now? The answer does not require introspective skill of a high order. These states are not subtle. Hurry has a specific physical and psychological texture. Worry has one. Resentment has one. They are distinguishable, identifiable, and, once identified, addressable through the specific corrective that each requires. What is required for addressing hurry is the reestablishment of a relationship with time that recognizes the physical world as a lagging indicator of a creative process already underway in the invisible. Wattles is explicit that time is required for physical manifestation, that the density of material existence means that even a clean, harmonically correct impression will take time to organize physical circumstances around itself. The practitioner who understands this inhabits a different relationship with delay. Delay is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of the physical lag that the creative process has always and will always exhibit. From this understanding, hurry has no logical basis. There is nothing to rush because the process is not waiting for urgency. It is already moving. For worry, the corrective is not reassurance. Reassurance is a surface-level intervention that temporarily quiets the anxiety without addressing its source. The corrective for worry is the deliberate re-entry into the living image, the return to the state of clear, settled mental contact with the desired result as already existing in the formless, held from within a state of genuine gratitude. When this is achieved, the creative act of worry is not suppressed. It is replaced. The mental occupation that was being given to the unwanted outcome is redirected to the image of the desired outcome, carried by a frequency of sufficiency rather than fear. The formless receives a new impression. The old one does not continue. For resentment, the corrective is the most conceptually demanding of the three, because it requires a genuine shift in the understood structure of reality, from a world of finite supply to a world of infinite creative substance. Wattles does not ask the practitioner to pretend to feel benevolent toward those who possess more. He asks something more fundamental: to genuinely comprehend that another's abundance does not diminish your own supply in any way, because the supply from which all abundance draws is inexhaustible. This comprehension, when it is genuine rather than performed, dissolves resentment at its root, not by redirecting the emotion, but by removing the premise upon which the emotion depends. A mind that has truly grasped the inexhaustibility of the formless cannot sustain resentment toward anyone who has drawn from it, any more than it can resent the person who drinks from a river it knows to be fed by an infinite source. These three correctives, the recalibration of the relationship with time, the replacement of worry through re-entry into the living image, and the dissolution of resentment through the comprehension of inexhaustible supply, are not techniques added to the practice. They are the maintenance operations of the frequency itself. The serious practitioner does not apply them occasionally when the dissonance becomes severe enough to demand attention. They apply them continuously as the ongoing work of keeping the instrument in tune. Frequency maintenance is not a crisis intervention. It is a discipline of sustained attention to the quality of one's inner state, a discipline more exacting and more fundamental than any outer practice Wattles describes. The practitioner who masters this maintenance, who can recognize the onset of hurry, worry, or resentment before any of them have had time to saturate the inner state, and who can return to harmony with the efficient brevity of one practiced at the operation, is the practitioner for whom Wattles' system begins to operate with the consistency and reliability he claims for it. Not the practitioner who has memorized the chapters, not the practitioner who performs the visualizations most faithfully, the practitioner who has mastered the inner instrument, who has achieved a degree of command over their own mental states sufficient to choose the harmonic configuration deliberately and maintain it with discipline. This is what Wattles means when he writes of becoming a certain kind of person. He does not mean a moral transformation. He means the achievement of a specific order of inner command. There is a specific moment in every practitioner's experience that Wattles addresses with more gravity than any other single point in his work. It is not the moment of beginning. It is not the moment of the first apparent result. It is the moment after a period of sustained, sincere practice, when the physical world has not yet reorganized itself visibly around the new impression, and a piece of contradicting evidence arrives. A bill that should not have come, a conversation that confirms the old reality rather than the new one, a moment in which the outer world speaks loudly in the language of the former frequency, and the practitioner looks at it and reacts. The reaction is the catastrophe, not the bill, not the conversation, not the persistence of the old circumstances. The reaction, the moment when the practitioner turns from the living image toward the physical evidence and allows that evidence to recalibrate their inner state, is the decisive failure point that Wattles identifies as the moment at which most practitioners undo the creative work they have accomplished. What makes this moment so catastrophic is not merely its emotional content, but its creative content. The moment you look at the old physical reality and react to it with fear, with disappointment, with the sinking recognition that things are not yet different, you are not merely experiencing an emotion. You are impressing the formless with the image of the old reality, carried by the full emotional weight of your reaction to it. You have, in a single moment of unguarded response, recommissioned the very impression you have been working to dissolve. To understand why this is so devastating, it is necessary to hold in mind the principle that the formless does not distinguish between impressions made in a state of deliberate creative intent and impressions made in a state of involuntary reaction. The mechanism does not check your intention. It receives your state. An impression made in a moment of anxious reaction to a contradicting bill carries exactly the same creative weight as an impression made in a carefully constructed morning practice. The formless does not award points for deliberateness or penalize reactions for being involuntary. It receives the signal with equal precision in both cases. The practitioner who spends 30 minutes each morning establishing the harmonic frequency and then spends the rest of the day reacting to physical evidence is not running a net positive creative practice. They are running a practice of internal contradiction, and the formless is receiving both streams with equal fidelity. Wattles refers to the physical world in the context of this problem as a lagging indicator. This phrase deserves to be held and examined with great care, because it contains the conceptual key to navigating the period between clean impression and physical manifestation. The period during which the contradicting evidence is most likely to arrive and most likely to trigger the reactive collapse. A lagging indicator, in the language of measurement and analysis, is a variable that changes after the underlying reality it reflects has already changed. It is not a primary signal. It is a delayed report on a primary signal that has already shifted. The physical world in Wattles' cosmology is always a lagging indicator of the invisible creative process. What you see in physical form right now is the product of impressions made at an earlier time. It is historical data, a report on a past inner state, not a verdict on the current one. This framing, the physical as historical data rather than as verdict, is the specific conceptual correction that makes it possible to maintain the harmonic frequency in the presence of contradicting physical evidence. The practitioner who has genuinely internalized this principle does not look at the old circumstances and conclude that the practice is not working. They look at the old circumstances and recognize them as the natural, expected physical residue of an earlier inner state, residue that is in the process of being dissolved by the new impressions being made now. The bill is not evidence of a failing practice. It is a report from the past arriving with its usual delay, describing a creative process that is already being superseded. It is entirely consistent with the practice being fully functional at this moment. The discipline required to sustain this perspective in the face of actual pressing physical contradiction is not a small thing. It is not achieved through intellectual understanding alone, however clear that understanding may be. It is achieved through the cultivation of what might be called inner authority, the degree of command over one's own mental state sufficient to refuse the recalibration that the physical evidence demands. This authority is not stubbornness. It is not the denial of reality. It is the precise understanding of which reality deserves to be treated as primary, the visible reality, which is lagging, or the invisible reality, which is current. The practitioner with inner authority knows which to attend to and can maintain that attention without the support of visible confirmation. The historical record of Wattles' system and of every serious application of these principles across the period since his writing shows a consistent pattern. The practitioners who achieve reliable results are not distinguished by the sophistication of their visualization technique or the quality of their morning practice. They are distinguished by their behavior in the gap, the period between clean impression and physical manifestation, when the old circumstances are still present and the new ones have not yet emerged. The practitioner who can move through that gap without reactive collapse is the practitioner who consistently produces results. The practitioner who cannot is the practitioner who consistently rebuilds the old frequency just as the new one is beginning to take material form. This gap behavior is the true test of the practice, and Wattles knew it. His extended attention to the enemies of frequency, to hurry, worry, and resentment, is organized around this specific period. Hurry intensifies in the gap because the gap is, by definition, the experience of delay. Worry proliferates in the gap because the physical evidence available in the gap provides continuous material for the construction of worst-case scenarios. Resentment deepens in the gap because the gap makes visible the contrast between what has not yet arrived for you and what is visibly present for others. The gap is the environment in which all three dissonant states achieve their maximum strength, and the harmonic state requires its maximum maintenance. There is no period of the creative process that demands more of the practitioner than this one. Wattles' counsel for the gap is not a technique, it is a posture. He calls it moving with certainty. The inner bearing of one who knows, with the quiet confidence of understood law, that the process is underway and that the physical lag is not a problem, but a property of the medium through which the creative force must pass. This posture does not pretend that the gap is not real. It does not deny the physical evidence of the lagging reality. It simply refuses to give that evidence the authority to recalibrate the inner state. The bill is real. The gap is real. The delay is real. None of these realities alter the fact that the impression has been made that the formless is responsive and that the creative process is already in motion. The posture of certainty holds all of these truths simultaneously, without contradiction. The practitioner who achieves this posture, even once, even briefly, in the face of genuine physical contradiction, understands something that all the reading of Wattles cannot convey. They understand the difference between knowing the law and operating from it. The law is known when it can be stated. It is operated from when it determines your inner response to contradicting evidence. Most practitioners are at the stage of knowing. The passage to operating requires not more knowledge, but more inner command. Specifically, the capacity to maintain the harmonic state, not in favorable conditions, but in the precise conditions under which it is most vulnerable. There is a subtlety in Wattles' treatment of this passage that deserves direct examination. He does not say the gap will always be brief. He does not promise that the physical manifestation will arrive on any particular schedule. He says the process is certain, not that it is fast. The certainty is about the direction and the inevitability of the result, given a sustained and undistorted harmonic signal. The timing is a function of the complexity of the physical rearrangement required, the degree to which the new circumstances must draw on events and actions and people not yet in position, and the clarity and consistency of the impressions being made. The practitioner who is pressing for speed, who is measuring the practice by how quickly the physical world is visibly reorganizing, is applying a criterion that Wattles never endorsed and that the nature of the process does not permit. The significance of this point extends beyond the immediate question of patience. It returns to the fundamental principle of the frequency itself. The practitioner who is measuring the practice by physical timescale is, by definition, not yet fully inhabiting the posture of certainty. They are still treating the physical world as the primary signal rather than as the lagging indicator. This treatment generates urgency, which generates hurry, which is a dissonant frequency. The measurement of progress by physical evidence is therefore not merely philosophically incorrect. It is functionally self-defeating, because the act of measurement from a position of urgency is itself an act of impressing the formless with the signal of the desired result as not yet arrived. The measurement accelerates the very delay it is trying to assess. The liberation from this self-defeating cycle, from the reactive collapse and the distorted measurement and the rebuilding of the old frequency, is the liberation that Wattles calls creative freedom. It is not the freedom of having all your desired results. It is the freedom of knowing with absolute certainty that the process is operative, that every moment of harmonic inner state is a moment of creation, and that the physical world will, in due course, and with the inevitability of law, reorganize itself around the sustained signal of the new inner reality. From this knowing, the gap loses its character as a period of danger and becomes simply a period of continued practice, a period of doing the inner work that the outer work requires as its foundation. The door is not being pushed against. The door is being allowed to open. These are not the same activity, and only one of them is effective. Each morning, before any action is taken, before the first interaction with the external world, before the first response to its demands, before the mind has been given any external content to react to, Wattles prescribes a specific act of mental construction. He does not frame it as an option or a supplement to the primary work of the day. He frames it as the foundational act from which all other productive action derives its quality and direction. The morning contact with the formless substance is not a preparation for the real work. It is the real work. Everything that follows in the day, every action, every conversation, every decision, proceeds either from the frequency established in this contact or from the absence of any established frequency, which means from whatever inner state the external world succeeds in imposing. There is no neutral morning. You either set the frequency or the day sets it for you. The mental architecture Wattles prescribes for this morning contact has a specific sequence and a specific quality that distinguish it from the visualization practice most commonly associated with his work. The practitioner does not begin by constructing the image. The image is not the beginning. The beginning is the entry into a state, a deliberate setting of the inner instrument to the harmonic frequency, through the act of genuine gratitude for what already is. This entry into gratitude is not brief. It is not perfunctory. It requires the practitioner to actually arrive, to set down, momentarily and completely, the weight of what is not yet present, and to attend with genuine attention to what is already real, already given, already operational in their life. The quality of what follows this entry is entirely determined by the depth of this initial act. From within the state of genuine gratitude, the image of the desired result is introduced, but not in the way that most practitioners introduce it. The image does not arrive as a wish or as a hope or as a mental picture of something that might come to be. It arrives as a recognition, the recognition that this result already exists in the formless, already impressed, already in the creative process of taking physical form. The relationship to the image is not the relationship of a person looking at something distant and desired. It is the relationship of a person acknowledging something that is already real in the most fundamental sense, already structured in the invisible substance from which physical reality is being continuously assembled. The image is being visited, not yearned toward. This distinction in the relationship to the image, visiting versus yearning, is the distinction between the living image and the mere visualization. The living image is possible only from within the harmonic state established by genuine gratitude, because only from within that state does the felt sense of sufficiency, the inner reality of already having, provide the context in which the image can be inhabited rather than merely observed. The person who begins their morning practice with the image, without first entering the harmonic state through gratitude, is constructing a mental picture from within a state that has not yet released the vibration of wanting. The image is there, but the frequency underneath it is wrong. The impression that reaches the formless carries both the content of the image and the frequency of the state, and the frequency of wanting continues to dominate. Once the image has been entered and inhabited, once the practitioner is genuinely inside the reality of the desired result rather than outside it looking in, the specific act of gratitude that Wattles prescribes is expressed. Not gratitude for the thing itself, as though it were already physically present. Gratitude for the formless, for the creative intelligence that is already, at this moment, organizing physical circumstances in response to the impression. This is a subtle but architecturally important distinction. Gratitude for the formless, as actively, currently responsive to this specific impression, is an act that reinforces the state of faith simultaneously. To be grateful for a process that you believe is already underway is to confirm in the felt substance of your inner state that the process is indeed underway. The gratitude and the faith become a single, mutually reinforcing act, and from within this unified state, the living image deepens, and the impression on the formless achieves its maximum clarity. The duration of this morning contact is not specified by Wattles with precision, and the absence of a specific time prescription is itself instructive. The criterion is not duration, but quality. The contact is complete when the harmonic state has been genuinely achieved. When gratitude is felt, when faith is settled, when the living image is inhabited with the quiet certainty of present fact. For some practitioners in some conditions, this takes minutes. For others, in periods of stronger resistance, it may require longer. What matters is not the length of the session, but whether the actual inner configuration has been achieved by its end. A 5-minute session in which genuine harmony is reached is worth more to the creative process than an hour of disciplined performance that never achieves the actual state. The formless receives the state, not the session. The function of this morning contact in relation to the day's actions is central to Wattles's practical system. He is explicit that the impressions made on the formless must be followed by action, by what he calls efficient action, directed action, the kind of movement through the physical world that creates the circumstances through which the invisible creative process can deliver its results into tangible form. But the quality of this action is entirely conditioned by the frequency from which it is undertaken. Action taken from within the harmonic state established by morning contact is action of a fundamentally different character than action taken from urgency, from fear, or from the pressing weight of what has not yet arrived. It is action that is directed, unhurried, and precisely aligned with the current creative process. It is the action of one who knows where they are going and is moving there with the efficient confidence of a person for whom the outcome is already settled. The morning contact therefore functions as the frequency anchor for the day's action, the reference point to which all subsequent inner calibration returns. When the day introduces its inevitable pressures, its contradicting evidence, its invitations to hurry, its occasions for resentment, the practitioner who has established a deep morning contact has a reference frequency to return to. The dissonance, when it arises, is not an emergency. It is simply a departure from the established frequency, and the return to it is a practiced, familiar act rather than a reconstruction from nothing. The quality of the morning contact determines the ease of every subsequent return throughout the day. There is an element of Wattles's morning architecture that is rarely addressed in the secondary literature on his work. The role of the imagination not as a creative tool in the popular sense, but as the faculty through which the formless is contacted. Wattles's use of the word image is consistent and precise throughout his writing, and it reflects a specific understanding of the imagination as the point of contact between the human mind and the formless creative substance. The imagination in his system is not the faculty for fantasizing about desired outcomes. It is the faculty through which thought takes form, the specific cognitive capacity that allows the formless substance to receive an organized, structured impression rather than a diffuse emotional signal. The living image is the form that the thought gives to the formless. Without the imagination to construct that form, the signal reaches the formless as undifferentiated emotional frequency, intense perhaps, but not imprinted with the specific pattern of the desired result. This means that the development of the imagination, the capacity to construct and inhabit mental images with increasing clarity, stability, and felt presence, is not merely a supplementary practice, but a core requirement of the system. The practitioner who approaches their morning contact with a poorly developed imagination will struggle to achieve the living image quality that makes the impression specific and directed. The solution is not to force clarity, but to practice presence, to spend time each day in genuine, unhurried imaginative engagement with the desired reality, not in the anxious mode of wanting it, but in the exploratory mode of knowing it. Over time, the image becomes more stable, more inhabited, more genuinely living, and as it does, the impressions it makes on the formless become more precise and more powerful. The morning contact is therefore not a ritual with a fixed form. It is a practice with a specific quality criterion, the criterion of genuine harmonic contact, and a specific sequence: gratitude first, then image, then the gratitude for response that confirms and deepens the faith. This sequence is not arbitrary. It reflects the functional architecture of the harmonic state. Gratitude opens the channel by eliminating the felt sense of lack. The living image fills the open channel with the specific form of the desired result. And the gratitude for response seals the circuit by confirming in felt experience the faith that the process is already operative. The full circuit, when completed with genuine inner engagement, is a complete act of creation, as complete and as operative as any act of creation that Wattles describes. What remains after the morning contact is the day itself, the field of action through which the creative process unfolds into physical form. Wattles does not describe the day as an arena of performance, a test of discipline, or a series of opportunities to prove the quality of your practice. He describes it as the medium through which the invisible creative process expresses itself in physical reality. The practitioner's role in the day is not to force results, but to remain in harmonic alignment as actions are taken. To act with the efficient, directed, unhurried energy of one who is already certain of the outcome and is simply moving through the physical field in the way that the creative process requires. The morning contact makes this possible. Without it, the day begins in whatever frequency the practitioner woke into, and every action taken that day is drawn from that unexamined, unestablished source. Wattles, in the full body of his work, provides what amounts to a real-time diagnostic instrument, a test that can be applied to any moment, any inner state, any action as it is being taken, to determine with immediate clarity whether the practitioner is in harmonic contact with the formless or has drifted into dissonance. The test does not require introspective training of a high level. It requires only honest attention to the qualitative texture of the current inner experience, measured against two sets of specific indicators that Wattles describes with a precision that makes them immediately recognizable when they are encountered in the actual substance of lived experience. The indicators of harmony are not the absence of challenge or the presence of comfort. They are more specific than that, and more demanding in what they require of the practitioner to recognize them. The first and most fundamental indicator is a sense of quiet sufficiency. Not the heightened pleasure of getting what you want, but the settled, undemonstrative quality of a person who is already in right relationship with their existence. This is the inner texture of a person who is not pressing, not reaching, not urgently oriented towards something that is not yet here. It is the absence of the forward-leaning urgency that characterizes most of modern conscious life. A person in this state moves through their actions with a quality of full presence, attending completely to what is in front of them, without the fraction of their attention that is habitually reserved for worrying about what is not yet in front of them. The second indicator of harmony is the capacity to act with full attention and no anxiety about the result. This is distinguishable from indifference. The harmonic practitioner cares deeply about the outcome, but the caring is not accompanied by anxiety, because the certainty of the result, grounded in the genuine comprehension of the law, renders anxiety structurally unnecessary. You do not feel anxiety about whether a law of physics will function tomorrow. The practitioner who has genuinely internalized the law of the formless has the same relationship to the arrival of their desired result. The action is taken with full commitment and full attention. The result is not in question. These two qualities together, full attention and result certainty, produce what Wattles calls efficient action, the kind that consistently advances the creative process because it contains no energetic waste and no counterproductive signal. The indicators of disharmony are equally specific and equally recognizable once the practitioner has been made aware of them as a distinct category of inner experience rather than as simply how life feels. Tightness, the specific physical and psychological constriction that accompanies the felt sense of threat, is the first. It is the somatic signature of a mind that is operating from the survival orientation of the competitive state. The feeling that something important is at risk, that the outcome is in danger, that protective action is urgently required. When this tightness is present, the practitioner is not in harmonic contact with the formless. They may be thinking the right thoughts. They may be doing the right things, but they are doing them from a state that carries the frequency of existential threat. And the formless is receiving that frequency as the primary signal. The need to check for evidence, the compulsive habit of looking at the physical world for signs that the creative process is working, is the second indicator of disharmony, and it is one of the subtlest and most common. Every act of checking for evidence is, at its root, an act of expressing doubt about whether the process is underway. The certainty that characterizes genuine faith does not require evidence. It precedes evidence. The practitioner who finds themselves habitually measuring, comparing, monitoring, evaluating their physical circumstances for signs of progress is inhabiting in those moments the inner state of one who does not yet know that the process is operative. And the formless receives this state of unknowing with the same precision with which it receives every other signal. The recognition of disharmony is not, in Wattles' system, an occasion for self-condemnation or for renewed urgency of effort. It is a calibration signal, a piece of information about the current state of the inner instrument, indicating that a return to frequency is required. The practice at this point is not to push harder, not to intensify the visualization, not to compound the session length. The practice is simply to return, to re-enter the harmonic state through the established sequence. Gratitude for what is already present. Contact with the living image from within that gratitude, and the confirming act of gratitude for response that seals the faith. This return does not need to be elaborate or extended. It needs to be genuine. A brief but authentic return to harmonic contact is worth more than an extended session of anxious performance. The real-time application of this test throughout the day is the practice that Wattles describes as the continuous maintenance of harmony, the ongoing discipline of attending to the frequency of one's inner state as the foundational operational task of the creative life. This discipline is not limited to the formal morning practice. It extends through every interaction, every decision, every moment of waiting, and every moment of action. The practitioner who applies it consistently does not achieve a permanent state of harmony. No one does, and Wattles does not claim they should. What they achieve is a decreasing average duration of dissonance. The ability to recognize a drift from frequency earlier, return to it more efficiently, and maintain it for longer stretches between returns. This progressive improvement in frequency maintenance is the actual measure of progress in the practice, not the size of the manifestations, not the speed of the results, but the quality and duration of harmonic contact with the formless. The test is not demanding in its complexity, it is demanding in its requirement for honesty. The practitioner who applies it must be willing to acknowledge without rationalization or excuse when they are in dissonance, when the tightness is present, when the checking's occurring, when the resentment is active. This acknowledgement is not self-defeat, it is the prerequisite for correction. The practitioner who cannot acknowledge dissonance cannot correct it because they have misidentified it as something else, as normal, as justified, as the reasonable response to difficult circumstances. The practitioner who can acknowledge it immediately and without drama has, in that acknowledgement, already begun the return. The test, honestly applied, is itself a form of the practice. Every return to frequency, Wattles states, is an impression on the formless. This statement carries its full weight only when the practitioner understands the cumulative nature of creative contact. Each moment of genuine harmonic alignment is not merely a preparation for a future creative act, it is a creative act. The formless receives the signal of the harmonic state and organizes in response to it, immediately, continuously, and with the precision that characterizes every operation of the law. The practitioner who returns to frequency 10 times in a day has made 10 impressions. The practitioner who returns once and holds the state for an hour has made one extended, deepening impression. Both are operative. Both are creative. Neither is wasted. The law does not require you to be perfect. It requires you to return. The final observation to be made about the real-time test is the most liberating one. The indicators of harmony, once they have been genuinely experienced and recognized, become self-reinforcing. The quiet sufficiency, the full presence, the result, certainty. These states, when inhabited, generate their own continuity. The practitioner who has entered genuine harmonic contact does not need to work to maintain it in the same way that entering it required work. The state has its own gravitational quality, its own internal logic, its own self-sustaining frequency. What the practice requires is the initial entry, the deliberate, disciplined act of returning to frequency when it has been lost, and the honest, ongoing application of the test to know when the return is needed. These two capacities, developed over time, constitute the full practical science that Wattles describes. Not more technique, not more method. The mastery of the inner instrument, applied with the discipline of one who understands the stakes. The full architecture of what Wattles teaches, stripped of all secondary elaboration and returned to its essential form, is a system of extraordinary compression. At its center stands a single, unalterable fact. The formless substance is real. It is not a symbol, not a metaphor, not a useful fiction for the psychologically suggestible. It is the actual, intelligent, responsive material from which all physical reality is continuously being assembled. It pervades and permeates everything that is. It is not distant. It is not conditional. It does not require your effort or your merit. It simply is the originating substance of every form, already present, already responsive, already operating in this moment with the same precision with which it has always operated. This substance responds to one thing: the frequency of the mind that contacts it, not to the content of your words, not to the sincerity of your desire, not to the intensity of your effort, not to the volume of your practice, to the frequency. And that frequency is not a mystery or a spiritual gift, reserved for those of exceptional nature. It is a specific, identifiable, reproducible inner state constituted by three simultaneous conditions: genuine gratitude for what already is, genuine faith in the form of settled knowing that the creative process is already underway, and a living image of the desired result, held with the quiet certainty of present fact. These three conditions, present simultaneously in the actual substance of your inner experience, constitute harmony with the formless. Harmony means the impression is being made. The impression means the creative process is operative. Every moment spent in this harmonic state is a moment of creation, not a preparation for creation, not a request for creation, but creation itself, occurring invisibly in the substance from which physical reality will later emerge into visible form. And every moment spent outside this state, in hurry, in worry, in resentment, in the reactive re-registration of old physical circumstances as verdicts, is a pause in the creative process. Not a permanent setback, not a fatal error, a pause. The system does not punish, it simply reflects. It returns to you in physical form with the precision of a scientific instrument, exactly what you have most consistently and most emotionally impressed upon it. Nothing more, nothing less, and nothing other. The enemies of frequency, hurry, worry, and resentment are not moral failures. They are technical conditions, specific states of inner dissonance that distort the signal and prevent clean impression. They can be recognized, they can be named, and they can be corrected through the deliberate return to harmonic contact. The morning practice establishes the frequency. The real-time test maintains it. The return to frequency after dissonance is the daily work, the actual discipline that determines more than any other single variable whether the creative process yields its results or remains perpetually potential. The door was never locked by an external force. It was held closed by a dissonant frequency. And the key is, and has always been, the frequency itself. The teaching in this complete form makes one demand above all others that the practitioner take full responsibility for the quality of their inner state as the primary act of their creative life. Not responsibility as guilt or self-accusation, but responsibility as command. The acknowledgement that the inner state is not a passive response to outer circumstances, but an active determination of what outer circumstances will, in time, become. This is the demand that separates the serious student from the casual reader. And it is the demand that Wattles made on his reader from the first sentence of his work. He called his book a science because he believed its principles to be as reliable and as exacting as the laws of physics. The exaction is real. The reliability is real. The requirement is the willingness to treat your inner life with the precision of a scientist operating a sensitive instrument. Wallace Wattles wrote at the turn of the 20th century for a readership that he knew faced a specific and pervasive failure of understanding, not about wealth, but about the nature of the mind's relationship to reality. The prevailing assumption of his era, reinforced by the materialist philosophy that dominated intellectual culture, was that the outer world was primary and the inner world was secondary, that circumstances shaped the person, that resources determined possibility, that the outer determined the inner. Wattles spent the entirety of The Science of Getting Rich dismantling this assumption with the systematic precision of a master builder removing a load-bearing wall and replacing it with something stronger. What he arrived at, the principle that the inner state is the primary creative act and the outer world its delayed expression, is not a comforting idea. It is not offered as consolation or as an alternative framework for those who find the materialist world discouraging. It is offered as a fact that, once genuinely comprehended, reorganizes the practitioner's entire relationship to their experience, not because it promises that everything will be easy, but because it locates the operative variable precisely. The operative variable is not your circumstances, it is not your history, it is not your resources or your connections or the visible evidence of what is currently possible for you. It is the quality of your inner state, maintained with the deliberate precision of one who understands what that state is creating in the invisible. This truth is simultaneously liberating and demanding, and the degree of either liberation or demand it presents is determined entirely by where the practitioner currently stands in relation to inner command. For the practitioner who has been attributing the inconsistency of their results to external factors, to timing, to luck, to the behavior of others, to the complexity of circumstances, this truth is initially disorienting. It removes the explanations. It removes the distance between the practitioner and the result. It says, without qualification, the instrument is you, and the instrument has been mistakenly calibrated, and the mistaken calibration is the only thing between you and the results you have been practicing toward. This is not a gentle message. Wattles did not intend it to be. He intended it to be exact. The exactness is the gift. A vague teaching offers comfort and produces little. An exact teaching, one that specifies precisely the nature of the problem, the mechanism of the solution, and the criterion by which progress is measured, places the practitioner in a position of genuine operational clarity. Wattles' teaching is exact. The frequency is the variable. Harmony is the condition. Gratitude, faith, and living image are the constituents. The enemies of frequency are named, and their correctives are specified. The morning contact is the establishment. The real-time test is the maintenance. The return to frequency after dissonance is the discipline. Every element of the system connects to every other element through the single unifying principle of frequency. The map is complete. The territory is navigable. What Wattles asks of you at the level of inner life is this: to stop treating your inner state as the victim of your circumstances and to begin treating it as the author of them. Not in the grandiose sense of claiming dominion over all external events, but in the operational sense of recognizing that every moment of genuine harmonic contact with the formless is a moment of actual creation, a moment in which the substance of reality is being impressed with the form of what you intend. To act from this recognition, consistently and with discipline, is to begin operating from the side of the creative law, rather than from the side of its effects. It is to move from the position of one who waits for the outer world to provide the conditions for inner harmony, to the position of one who establishes inner harmony and allows the outer world to reorganize around it. This inversion is the entire teaching. The Master's knowledge, examined fully and without the simplifications that popular reception has layered upon it, reveals a system of profound internal logic, a system that does not ask you to believe anything that cannot be verified in the actual observable behavior of your own inner life and its relationship to your external circumstances. The verification takes time. It requires the sustained discipline of frequency maintenance across the period of physical lag. But the verification is available to every practitioner who applies the system with the precision and the honesty it demands. Wattles knew this. He wrote with the authority of one who had traced the principle to its source and confirmed its operation. The authority is available to you through the same path, not through reading alone, but through the disciplined application of what the reading reveals. The greatest misunderstanding that has surrounded Wattles' work since its publication is the notion that it is a system for getting things. It is not. It is a system for becoming the kind of consciousness that, by its nature and by the operation of an invariable law, draws things to itself, not through effort and acquisition, but through the magnetic quality of a mind in sustained harmonic contact with the intelligence that creates all things. The getting is the natural consequence. The frequency is the cause. Attend to the cause with the precision it deserves, and the consequence follows with the inevitability of law. The truth that Wattles preserved in his brief, extraordinary work is not new. It appears in different vocabularies and with different emphases across the full span of contemplative and philosophical inquiry, from the earliest recorded thought to the present. What Wattles contributed was not the discovery, but the systematization, the reduction of a vast and diffuse field of wisdom to a precise operational set of principles organized around a single, testable claim, that the mind, in harmonic contact with the formless substance, is the most powerful creative force available to the human being. Test this claim, not as a belief to be adopted, but as a hypothesis to be investigated with the full rigor of your own experience. The result of that investigation, conducted honestly and sustained with the discipline the system requires, is what Wattles called the science of getting rich. It is also, though he was modest about saying so, the science of becoming free. There is a question that belongs to you now, and it is not a rhetorical device. It is a genuine inquiry into the record of your own experience, and it deserves to be answered with the same precision that Wattles brought to his writing. Have you ever been in this frequency, truly in it, not performing it, and felt in the actual substance of your inner experience the quality that distinguishes it from every other state? The quiet sufficiency, the settled knowing, the sense that the living image was not a hope, but a present fact already structured in the invisible. Have you touched that, even once, even briefly, and recognized it not as a pleasant mood, but as contact with something that was genuinely responding? Or if that moment has not yet been fully reached, or if it has been reached and then lost, are you able to locate the precise moment of departure? The moment when the bill arrived, or the conversation went wrong, or the mirror of the physical world reflected the old circumstances back at you, and you looked at it and reacted, and the frequency dropped, and the door returned to being a door. Most practitioners can locate that moment with perfect accuracy when they examine their experience honestly. They know exactly what happened. They know what they felt. They know when the signal distorted. What they have not yet had is the vocabulary to describe it, or the framework to understand it as a technical event rather than as a personal failure. That vocabulary has now been given. The framework has been laid. Tell us in the comments what you have experienced. Not what you believe, not what you hope will be true. What has actually happened in your inner life in relation to these principles? The moments of genuine contact and the moments of departure from it. Describe what the frequency felt like when you had it. Describe the moment you lost it, what you were doing, what arrived, how the inner state shifted. Describe what you returned to, and how you returned, and whether the return felt like reconstruction or like coming home. This is not a survey. It is a contribution to a body of living evidence that no book can accumulate on its own. The real-time testimony of practitioners engaged with these principles in actual circumstances, across the full spectrum of human experience. The engagement that takes place in that space below, in the exchange between practitioners who have encountered the same door from different angles and found different keys and different failures and different moments of genuine contact, is the continuation of the work that Wattles began. It is not commentary. It is the living practice of the tradition, the testing of principle against experience, the refinement of understanding through honest testimony, the recognition that the teaching gains in precision with every genuine account of its operation. Add your account, whatever stage of this work you're at, whether you're still standing outside the door, or whether you have been inside it and returned, or whether you have found a way to maintain the frequency with a consistency you have never been able to explain to anyone. Your experience belongs in this conversation. Subscribe to this channel so that when the next examination of these principles is laid down, you will be present for it. The work of the Masters is not a single document. It is a continuous transmission, a body of understanding that deepens with every serious engagement. The tradition is alive precisely because it has always found in every generation practitioners serious enough to take it past the surface and into the territory where the actual law operates. You are in that territory now. Stay there. Return to frequency. Let the formless receive the signal of what you are and trust, with the settled knowing of one who has comprehended the law, that it is already responding.